Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Caldo webinar of today. Today, the topic of our presentation will be the application process and also the admission requirements. So, just before we start, I'm just going to give you a brief overview of what will happen in the next hour or so. In the first 30 minutes, I will be doing a presentation in English. We are broadcasting this webinar for several countries in Central and South America. So we have Spanish-speaking countries, and we also have Portuguese-speaking country, Brazil. So we will be doing the presentation in English. At the end of the presentation, there will be a chance for you to ask any questions that you may have regarding the application process or admission requirements. In order for you to be able to ask your questions, I will ask that you use the chat box that you have on your screen and type your questions in Spanish, Portuguese, or English as you prefer. And I will be answering the questions in the same order that you will be writing them. Please note that during the presentation, I won't be answering any questions, so I will be just presenting, and only at the end will I be answering questions. If by any chance you are having some issues with the sound, you will need to restart your presentation because sometimes just that is enough. So let's start the presentation because we are exactly on our starting time. So for those of you that are not aware, Caldo is a group of universities that decided to create this office that it's called Caldo. Caldo stands for the initials of the four original universities, so it's Consortium of Alberta, Laval, Dalhousie, and Ottawa universities. And right now it's comprised of 9 of the main Canadian universities. Our universities offer programs in both English and French, and our area of our services, basically, and our area of work is the Latin American region. One of the things that, for those that are not familiar with Canada, should know about the Canadian universities and educational system is that Canada is among the countries for which the higher educational system is world recognized. So we have universities that are able to offer state-of-the-art laboratories, professors from all over the world. You will interact with colleagues from different countries, all because the universities are very well equipped with materials and laboratories, and also because the education as a whole is very well regarded worldwide when it comes to the standards from Canadian institutions. One of the main aspects of the Canadian society is the fact that it's very multicultural. So you will find people from all over the world in the university campus and in our cities. The Caldo universities are spread across the Canadian territory, so you will have universities that are closer to the west, so closer to the Pacific Ocean, while others are closer to the Atlantic Ocean, and others are just in the middle of the country. One important feature of Canada is also the fact that it's a bilingual country. So it's a country for which English and French are both official languages, and our universities offer programs in English or in French depending on the university. The Canadian academic system is very similar to what you will find in your home country. So after you do your pregrado, your graduação, you are able to do a master's degree. The master's degree usually take between 1 and 2 years. And in Canada, you have 2 different types of master's degrees. You have thesis-based masters and you have course-based masters. The thesis-based masters are the master degrees that will require the students to do a dissertation, so a research in the second year. The course-based masters are usually also called professional masters and are programs such as MBAs or Masters of Public Health. These programs um, are usually not offered with such an extensive research dissertation. Some might have a small project that students need to do at the end, but it's not a full year just for research. If the student is interested in doing a PhD afterwards, the best option, and not only the best, but the option that you should take for the master is the master with thesis, so the master with research. Because the professors at the PhD level, they want to make sure that the student has the necessary research skills to undertake the dissertation for a PhD. PhDs are usually between 4 and 5 years, and students will need to have, like I just mentioned, a strong research background. For admission into a PhD, it's essential that every student finds a supervisor that is interested in working with him or her. So basically, before you even apply to the program, you have to make sure that you have a supervisor that is interested in working with you. And this is one of the features of the Caldo service that I will mention in a few slides. So right now, the Caldo universities are the ones that are listed here. Like I mentioned before, it's a group of 9 universities. Our numbers may vary. So in a few time we may have more universities. So it's an open group. But the universities that are listed here are the current members. Alberta and Calgary are both situated in the province of Alberta, that it's in the west side of Canada. Dalhousie University is exactly on the opposite side, so it's on the east, just beside the Atlantic Ocean. Université Laval, it's located in the French-speaking province of Quebec, so it's a university that offers the most French programs. University of Ottawa is located in the capital city of the country, and it's one of the largest bilingual universities in the world. So it offers both programs in English and in French. Queen's University, it's located in the province of Ontario. The University of Saskatchewan is located in the province with the same name, Saskatchewan. The University of Waterloo and Western are also located in Ontario. So Ottawa, Queen's, Waterloo, and Western are located in the same province, Ontario. Laval is in the French-speaking province of Quebec. Saskatchewan is in the province with that same name. Alberta and Calgary are in the province of Alberta, and Dalhousie is in the province called Nova Scotia. The Caldo office was put together by the universities, so we are not a private agency. We are not an agency. We are part of the universities, and because we are part of the universities, we are able to offer all of our services for free. And the main purpose of our office is to assist candidates that are interested in studying in any of our universities and are not very familiar with the programs that they offer or how to apply, what are the steps that you need to do in order to choose a program. So all of that decision-making process is something that we assist you with. Sometimes candidates ask, why should I go through Caldo and not through the university directly? It's up to you. So Caldo, like I mentioned, he is here to assist you in everything we can so that you make an informed decision. If you already know one of our universities and you are interested in getting information for a specific program from that university, you can definitely go directly to the university. However, the main advantage of Caldo is the fact that through one point of contact, you have access to the information of 9 different universities. This is extremely useful for someone that does not have a very clear idea of what options the universities offer. So it's a very efficient use of your time just to ask us eventually what is your program of interest and what are the options that the universities offer. In addition to that, for the students that are considering to bring financing from their own country, so for example, a beca or a bolsa from one of the countries that we have agreements with, and you can find out more about that in our website. We are also able to facilitate the contact with supervisors. So like I mentioned, for PhD programs, it's essential to have a supervisor. So we have a dedicated platform that is its sole purpose is basically to allow candidates to get in touch with professors. Some features that are interesting about our universities, I already mentioned in the second slide. However, one of the things that it's important for you to realize is that, first of all of our universities offer programs in all areas of knowledge. So if you are interested in the fields of engineering, social sciences, health sciences, and so on, our universities will most likely offer the program that you're looking for. Between all of the universities, between master's and PhD programs, you are able to choose around 3,000 different programs, which gives you an idea of the quantity and how difficult sometimes it can be to navigate all these programs. Our universities have dedicated international offices that its sole purpose is to assist international students that are interested in studying at the university. So this international office is basically um, uh, um, an office that exists for students that are not from Canada to have assistance with day-to-day things, and also to get assistance with things like registering for classes and more academic information. All of our universities offer language programs through their language schools. Although this is not financed by the scholarships, if you are interested in improving your English or your French, it's possible because the universities have dedicated language schools. However, like I just mentioned, all of these programs have a cost, and the cost will not be financed by any scholarship, so the student needs to pay for it directly. So let's now look a bit into the admission requirements that the universities request from candidates. If you are interested in applying to a master, you will need to have what it's called a bachelor's degree. A bachelor's degree is basically a 4-year program that in your country it might be called a bacharelado or a licenciatura. So it's a 4-year program that the student attends after high school. If you have that from a recognized university in your country, you are most likely to be eligible to apply to a master's degree in any of our universities. To apply for a PhD, it is recommended that the candidate already has a master's degree. And like I mentioned before, the master's degree should be in a research in a research field. So it needs to be a master's degree where you did a thesis, where you did a dissertation. Um, the professional course-based masters, the mestrados profissionais ou mestrados profissionais, are not eligible for PhDs. These programs are more for people that just want to gain new skills, but they are not very interested in the academic side of things. So they are not thinking on doing a PhD later on. So they just want to gain new skills, and for them, they don't need the dissertation. One other thing that you will hear about is the GPA. So the GPA is the grade point average. So it's basically your average from your pré-grado or graduação. Different countries have different scales, so they have different indicators. So in most cases, when you see the GPA in our universities, you will see a scale from 0 to 4. The best way to translate this into your scale is to think in terms of percentages. So usually for application into a master or a PhD, an international student should have an average of at least 70% in the last 2 years of study. So based on averages and in percentages, you are able to have a better perspective if you meet the admission requirements for the program or not. One thing that it's challenging is the fact that not all programs require the same grade, so some require more than others. So it's always important to be sure of what is the GPA that the program that you're interested requires. Another thing that you will notice that it's an essential criteria for admission is language. As you easily realize, when you are studying in a Canadian university, you will either be studying in English or in French. So you will not be studying in Spanish or Portuguese. In order for the universities to make sure that the candidate satisfies the minimum requirements, they will request from the candidate a proficiency test. The most common tests for English are the TOEFL IBT. So please make sure that the version that you are taking is the IBT, Internet-Based Test, or the IELTS Academic. And once again, the grades vary according to the different programs. However, one important thing to take into consideration is the following. If you have a TOEFL of less than 80, it's almost impossible to meet the minimum requirements for any program. You will always need to have a TOEFL between 80 and 100. That is where most programs will request the grade is between 80 and 100. If you have an IELTS of less than 6, once again, it won't meet probably the minimum requirement for any program. So it's advisable to have an IELTS of around 6 and 7.5. For French language proficiency, the Université Laval, they don't clearly state a specific level per program. What they usually do is they try to assess the level of English, the level of French of the candidate, and try to see if it would meet the need of the program. So they don't clearly state that it needs to be above a specific indicator. However, there are recommendations that they have. And for French, you can use the TFI or the DALF-DELF as tests for assessing your French language level, sorry. One important thing, sometimes candidates ask, can I apply without the language test? I will do the language test in 2 months. Can I apply now? My personal recommendation is that you first take a test that you are sure that you meet the minimum requirement. Because if the test score is too low, you might be applying and then in the end, you will not be successful because your test score was way too low for the minimum that was required for the program. So that's just something to keep in mind. Some of you ask, do I need the GRE or the GMAT to apply to programs in Canada? The answer is, in most cases, no. The GRE or the GMAT are tests that are usually required for very specific programs, mainly programs in the business area, so MBAs and Masters of Management. In those cases, you will definitely need one of these two tests. Or for programs for which there is a lot of competition, there is a lot of applicants, such as computer science, psychology, and physics and astronomy. So basically, if you're not interested in a very specific program that is, for example, one of these that's mentioned here, you will most likely not need a GRE. Also, it might depend on the university. Some universities might require the GRE for a specific program, while others don't. But one thing is sure, for business programs, it will all require you either the GRE or the GMAT. For some, you will notice that there is no minimum score required. They just want to know which is the level of the candidate. So they just want to know what was the score that the candidate obtained in that particular test. Another important thing are the deadlines. Most programs have deadlines. So deadline is the last day for which you can apply to the program. Starting dates in Canada for masters and PhDs are in most cases September. So September is when most programs start. Then there might be a second intake in January. And in some cases, there might be a third intake around May. But for almost all programs is September, and for also a large quantity of programs can also be January. For September application, usually international candidates will need to apply in the first three months of the year. And once again, I say for most, because once again, the deadlines will vary depending on the program. For programs that start in January, candidates can apply usually up to the start of September. So also another thing to keep in mind. Talking about supervisors, like I mentioned before, supervisor is a professor that will guide your thesis in either a master's or a PhD. The supervisor is an essential key of the admission process. So, when you are thinking on applying to a master's with thesis or to a PhD, it's always advisable that you contact professors beforehand to see if they would be interested in working with you. Like I mentioned, for PhD, it's mandatory. There is no option. For masters, it depends. Some masters might not require the supervisor to accept you at the admission um, um, before the application, while others may require that. So it always depends on how popular the program is. Um, one of the things that it's important for you to realize is that the information on supervisors is found on the university's websites. If you go to the department page, you will find something called research, or you will find faculty, like a tab, a specific section of the menu that says faculty, or might say research areas. When you go to those sections, you will find different research areas or different professors, and you need to go into the profile of each professor and see what the professor is doing and what are his interests. And what you will try to do is you will try to match the interests of the professor with your own interests and find which is the best matching for you for your case. Once you found that, you can then contact the supervisor, introduce yourself, and make sure that you develop some sort of conversation in order to have the supervisor accept you for PhD or master studies. Which documents usually do you need for the application? For the application, you will need the transcripts. The transcripts are basically the certificado de notas, so o histórico de notas. It's the document that describes the courses that you took during your bacharelado, that has all the grades, and the universities require the original document and also a translation of the document. The translation needs to be done by a certified translator from your home country. There is no list of translators that the universities have. So if you go to a translation office, or if you go to a language school, it's very likely that they have translators there. As long as the translation is done by someone that can put a stamp or identify in a cover sheet is translation credentials, that should be fine. Language test, like I mentioned, you need to certify that you have the minimum level of language, and once again, you need to certify that using the tests that I talked about 2 slides ago. Statement of research. The statement of research is a 1 to 2 page document where you will summarize what type of research you want to do. Obviously, this is all only relevant for PhDs and for masters with thesis. So for a professional master's, there is usually no research involved, so you don't need no statement of research. There is a lot of information about this in the Caldo website. So for those of you that are not familiar, I advise you to visit the Caldo website that you see the address at the bottom of the slide. And there's a section called Tools to Apply. The Tools to Apply, you have information on several of these things. You will also need to present your CV in a way that it's similar to the Canadian format for a CV. And you need to have references. So references are basically professors that know you, or people from the academic world that know you and that can speak well about your research abilities and about your academic performance in either the master or the bachelorate. If you are wondering what a transcript is, there's an example here. So basically, it's a document where you will find all the courses and all the grades from your bacharelado. So pretty straightforward document. In regards to the statement of research, this slide has a lot of information, but you will find all of this in our website. So the basic thing that candidates need to take into consideration is the following. The statement of research is meant to raise the supervisor interest in working with you. So imagine this. Imagine that you're applying to a job. You want to get an interview. So if you want to get an interview, you will highlight your qualities and make sure that your qualities are aligned to what the person is looking for. And you also want to highlight why you want to work with that person, why you are interested in that particular supervisor. So based on these two dimensions, you will need to write 2 pages that will make sure that will catch the professor's attention. One of the things that it's important for everyone to realize is that professors they receive several requests, so don't expect an answer in the next day or so. Usually, give it up to 2 weeks for the person to answer you back. If you don't get any answer, write them, do a follow-up on the email that you sent, and in a polite way, just say to the person that you sent the email, you are really interested in getting some feedback from the professor, and you would appreciate any reply that the person can give you within the next week or so. So basically, you need to have this is a process that requires persistence and patience. That's the bottom line. In terms of the CV, you will have some indicators of how to write the CV in the Caldo website. Some things that are pretty standard is basically don't include pictures, don't include personal information. The only personal information that you need to include is your first and last name, your email, and phone number. That's it. If you have a Skype ID, for example, but no need for full address, your marital status, or anything related to how many children you have. None of that is required for this type of CVs. One very important source of information is the Caldo website. Our website was designed specifically for candidates, and there's a lot of information there that it's very useful for you to. So what I was mentioning before were the tools to apply. So the tools to apply are exactly in this section of the website. One also very important section, a very interesting section for you is this one that you see here, steps to apply. Steps to apply is available by clicking on this red button. And the steps to apply will give you information on programs, on finding financing, on finding a supervisor, and on where is the section of the website where you actually apply. One important thing is that Caldo, like I mentioned at the beginning, is not an application platform. You do not apply to a program via Caldo. You always apply via the university website. What we do at Caldo is promote our universities and assist the candidates with finding the right program and making sure that they understand what sort of information they need to apply. That's our main focus. Once you find which program you're interested in applying, then you need to go to the university website and you formalize your application in the university website. Please note that all of the applications have a fee, so you will need to pay the application fee. The application fee is around 100 Canadian dollars, and you will need to then wait a couple of weeks before you get to hear from the university. Usually what might happen is that you will apply by submitting electronic copies of your documents, and then you will receive an email where the university will request for receiving some physical documents, so documents that you will actually need to go to the post office and send to the university. Our services are available via email, so any question that you may have, the email where you can contact us is this one here, graduate.coordinator@caldo.ca. Feel free to ask us any question regarding programs, regarding admission requirements. When you are contacting us for the first time, please make sure that you give us a bit of an idea of what you studied before, which country are you from, which sort of program are you interested in, if there's any particular university that you would like to get information from. Sometimes we receive emails just saying, "Hello, I want to do a master's degree in Canada. What do I need to do?" this sort of communication is not very helpful because we need more information than this. So feel free to give us a bit of an overview of what you're looking for, what you did before, and we will go from there. So, like I just mentioned, we are exactly at half an hour into our presentation, so we are exactly on the time that we had planned for the presentation, and now we can open the webinar to questions and answers that you may have. So, at this time, I will ask you to use the chat box to write any questions that you may have. Sometimes when we have a lot of people, like it's the case now, a lot of questions come up at the same time. So I will try to answer them in the same order that you're asking them. If there are similar questions, I will group them. So I will make sure that I will sort of answer more, two or more questions if they are related. One important thing, during these presentations, it's very hard for me to give you advice on which university is best to do, for example, a master's in mechanical engineering. All of our universities offer similar programs. So it will depend a lot on what you are looking for. So for specific information on programs, please send me an email, because via email is much easier to reply to specific programs and which courses may be best for you. So I guess that all of you can see the screen now. I will see which is the first. I think the first question is from Jennifer Salguero. So Jennifer is asking if our universities offer scholarships or PhDs. Yes, Jennifer. All of the universities have research funding that they can use for PhD students. At the Caldo office, we are not specialists in the financing aspect of our universities, because it depends on the departments, and it varies a lot. So it's impossible for us to know everything about it. However, if you are not interested in getting a beca from your home country, you can definitely explore the possibility of getting it through the university. And one of the things is that most of the scholarships are obtained through the supervisors. So the professors have the money, and if they really are interested in a student, they will pay for the student to do the PhD with them, which is awesome. Luis, do I need to find sponsor for my country, or is it possible to find some scholarship in Canada? Like I said, Luis, you can definitely find a scholarship from your country or find a scholarship from a Canadian source. It's up to you. Gabriel, I did the TOEFL in September 2004. It's still valid. So, Gabriel, the TOEFL and the IELTS are like yogurt, so they expire. Basically, after 2 years, they are no good. So, in your case, you need to retake the test. That's basically the point. Diego, the audio it's working. The audio it's working, Diego, but I'm not sure if you cannot hear me. Probably you won't hear my answer, but yeah, it's working. Eric, I have applied for a master program at the University of Alberta. I applied, the deadline is May 31st. Won't I have an answer before that, or they may email me a yes or no prior to the deadline? So Eric, I'm not entirely sure which are the rules of the department that you applied, but usually you would receive a reply probably before the deadline. So for example, if you are applying to a scholarship, Eric, please make sure that the university knows about it, because sometimes the deadlines for scholarships are before the deadlines of the university programs. So when the candidate tells the university that they are applying for a scholarship that has a specific deadline, they will speed up the process. Okay, so they will do things a bit faster. Edgar, once upon I finish my studies, can I stay in Canada and work? So Edgar, everything that relates to immigration, we are not able to advise you. There's a website, and if you go to our site, the Caldo site, there's a link for the immigration website. The immigration website talks specifically about working in Canada after your studies, and that's where you should find most of the information. Another good source of information is the embassy, the Canadian embassy in your country. Okay, so also make sure that you contact them because they can provide you information. Mike has asked, can you help with the translation of CV or the proposal? So, Micah, we don't do translations at our office, okay? So what every candidate needs to do is actually have a translator or someone that knows about the English or French language to assist you with producing the documents in English or in French. If you go online, you can get depending on the type of text that you're trying to translate, you can get an initial translation done by Bing or by Google Translator. That could be a bit acceptable. But if you are sending things to professors, please don't use those tools because the translation might be really might sound really weird in some cases. Andres is mentioning the steps to apply it for a scholarship. So Andres, the scholarships are a completely different thing. So like I mentioned before, scholarships can be obtained through the supervisors. So the professor will be able to guide you or forward you to someone that can assist you with that. But in the universities, usually there's staff that can assist you with finding out how the scholarships work. So the best source is actually the departments at the universities that deal with scholarships. Bruno, I intend to apply into a PhD in Canada next time. I still have my master's, but it will end February 2019. When should I begin emailing possible supervisors? So, Bruno, think it like this. If you start 1 year in advance, it's not a bad idea. Okay, so you can start right away. You can start contacting professors because, as you may understand, as you may realize, they plan things ahead so that they know how many students they can accept. So if you start contacting them next month or March, it's a good timing. Fernando, how long it takes the process of application? So Fernando, the process of application, it doesn't take too long as you have all the documentation that you need. So once you submit your application, usually you might receive a reply within 3 to 4 weeks, depending on if you are submitting it too close to the deadline. It might even be before that. So it's you will start getting feedback from the university. I would say between 3 and 4 weeks after you submitted the documents. Ilse is asking if I apply in September 2018, is it to enter January 2019? No, if you want to start no, sorry, Ilse. Yes, it can be. Once again, it depends on the program, but if you are applying to something that was the deadline is September, then most likely you are applying to start in January. However, one thing that it's important is the following. Please make sure that you always have time to take care of the visa. So for you to come to Canada, you will need a study visa, study permit. So these things might take up to 3 to 4 weeks, or in some cases more. So you need to plan everything in advance. Maria Teresa, for all those universities, shall we submit the hard copies of the documents to apply? So in the first moment, Maria Teresa, you will submit electronic copies. Okay, so you will submit PDFs, but afterwards you will need to submit some hard copies, such as the transcripts and the and that's it. Yeah, because the language test is submitted directly from the language school in most cases. So, Alain, how much time does it take to find a supervisor on average? So, Alain, if you're really lucky and you are interested in a professor that is accepting students, it can be fairly quick. You know, from 1 week to the other. If you find a supervisor are exchanging emails, he might just tell you, okay, I accept you now. Please make sure that you submit your application. If you're looking for supervisors that are full of students that are not accepting new students, then obviously it might take much more time. But in the end, once you click with a supervisor, usually it's a very fast process. It's usually from 1 week to the other. Hector, what is the best university to study PhD in hydraulic engineering? So Hector, like I mentioned, please send me an email because I can eventually advise you best, but I'll need to do some research for that. Elisa, my doubt is on tuition, funding, and scholarships. Is it possible to obtain financial help as an international student, or is it better to immigrate as a permanent resident before applying for my PhD? So, Elisa, if you are a permanent resident, you will be um, assessed domestic tuition. So in Canada, there are two different types of tuitions: domestic for Canadians and permanent residents, and international tuitions for everyone else. If you are a permanent resident, you are eligible for domestic tuitions that are usually much cheaper. But for example, in all of our universities for PhD studies, you don't find a lot of students that are paying their own studies. They are either scholarship from the university or on a scholarship from their own country. So if you are interested in a PhD, most likely if you are a student for which the professor has an interest, you will get a scholarship either way. Adriana is asking, I wish to apply to a master in Queen's University and the University of Alberta. I already have done the TOEFL and I received a 112 score. But I do not have a physical paper with my scores. I only have the score sheet you download from TOEFL. Is that enough? So Abigail, in most cases, the university, what they require is that you send, or is that you tell the language school the code of the university and they will send your scores to the university. So in most cases, you don't need a physical copy of this because this is all done electronically. So just make sure that when you're applying, if there should be a reference with the code of the university, and you should give that reference to the school where you did your test, and they will send the information online. Alejandra, I really want to know if it's possible to apply for a master, even if I receive my transcript after this, because I'm doing my thesis and my university is slow. Yeah, no, Alejandra, some people apply with when they are close to finishing. If you have some sort of, even if it's just an online screenshot that you can get from your grades, you can submit that initially, and afterwards you submit the original version or the final version. Hangel, I am a PhD student. Is there a chance for an exchange for a few months? Yes, there is the chance of a visiting researcher. The universities offer that possibility. And once again, the success here is that you find a supervisor that is interested in working with you. So if you are able to do that, then the next step is financing. I don't know if you have some sort of financial assistance from your home country, or if you have a scholarship from your home country that gives you money to go abroad. So all of those things then can be discussed with the professor. Um, Adrian is asking, what kind of extracurricular activities are available for master students at Caldo universities? Well, Adrian, that's an interesting question. Our universities offer a lot of options for students in terms of sports. So, for example, they most of the universities have sport complexes where the students have access to the gym to go work out. Um, they might also offer the chance for the student to be part of the university team of basketball or American football or hockey if you know how to skate. Um, I'm pretty sure there must have been several clubs and some of them related to Latin America. But yeah, you're right. There are different things that students can do to spend their time and to get to know other people, to socialize. Juan Flores, from Peru, I want to apply to an MBA, which is with an extension in finance. I've heard Hy-Vee and Queen are very good. Do they have financing assistance? Can Caldo help me with this Canadian sponsor? So Caldo does not have any decision in regarding to financial assistance. Okay, so that's exclusively the area of the universities. MBA programs, Juan, are the programs for which the least financial assistance is available, because those programs are usually course-based masters. So like I mentioned, they are not research. So there's no financing for those programs. Most of the students will pay for themselves or will get créditos from their own country. So that's one of the options where you will not find a lot of financing for those programs. David Flood, I'm doing a Master of Sustainability in Scotland. I got two questions. For a PhD, will I need also to comply with specific GPA from my bachelor and my master? Since I'm from an English-speaking country, I need to take the TOEFL. So, David, if you have done your masters, sorry, like you say, you are doing your masters in Scotland. You are already doing it in an English-speaking country. So, as long as your master's is equivalent to a 2-year program, you should be fine. So you would not need to have an English test. And for the GPA, it's usually the last 2 years of study. So in that case, if your master's is 2 years, it would be from the master's. Abigail, do I need letters where they are stating they know me, like the references or the names and emails of said references would be enough? Abigail, in most cases, you just need to have the name and the contact, like the email of the person. And you will include that information in your application. So the way that the universities work in most cases is you include the email of the person and make sure that in most cases people won't accept Gmails or Hotmails or general emails. You will need to mention an email, for example, from a university or from the workplace of the person. And then the person will receive an online form while they will give the reference for the student online. Right now, most of the things are done online, so it's pretty convenient for international students. Luis, how do I find a scholarship from Canada? So, Luis, like I said, the best scenario is for you to go through the supervisors. Professors, they manage funds, they manage money, so they are the ones that in most cases will finance the students. So once you find a supervisor, you can initiate some conversations about financing. Sebastian, are some age restrictions for masters? They may be, Sebastian. So, for example, if a student has stopped studying for 20 years and now wants to do a master with research, there might be some issues with admission. But if it's a master or like a professional master, like a master in management or a master's in public health that doesn't have any research, probably you won't have a lot of issues there. Um, Bruno, I would want to do a master's degree in civil engineering. I live in Brazil. Could I apply from here? And if the professor accepts my application, I go Canada with everything ready. Yes, yes, Bruno. All students will apply for their own countries. So only if you get admission will you come to Canada. You don't need to be here before that. Gabriel, for Brazilians, translations are called traduções juramentadas. You're right. Tens toda a razão, Gabriel. Exatamente. São traduções juramentadas que a maior parte dos candidatos necessitam. Fedra, do the service of Caldo provide have any cost? Do you have a translation service? So no, all of our services are free. They are gratis. No costs for using our services. But no, we don't have any translation services. In what we recommend is just finding any translator from your own country, and that's enough. Mariana, what happens if my possible supervisor is asking me to have a CONACYT scholarship as a condition to be accepted? What if I get another funding option? So Mariana, it's a matter of discussing with your supervisor. What I think the professor is requiring is probably because he might not have more research funds, so he's only able to accept students if they bring some sort of financing. So if you are able to prove to explain to the supervisor that you didn't get a CONACYT, but you got some sort of other financial assistance, for example, from FIDER in Mexico, that's probably a good option. Alejandro, CONACYT in Mexico has an agreement with Caldo, in which Caldo and CONACYT pay the tuition and other fees to the student. At which my application should I mention that I want to use that scholarship? So Roberto, you should mention that from the beginning. So if you're applying to the university, mention that you're looking to apply for a CONACYT scholarship because that's important for them to know. Sorry, let me just see here because there's something. Guzman is asking, are graduate assistantships in master's program common? I don't know how to answer that question. Good. They may be for some programs and not for others. It depends on what are the availabilities of the departments at the time. Miguel Angel, is there any difference to apply for a job as engineer after getting a master with research or course base? Only with research are accepted to work as engineers in Canada. No, no, Angel, that doesn't have anything to do. Now, if you want to become a professor, yes, probably the master with research is better. But to work as an engineering, what you will need is to register in the College of Engineers in the province where you are. That's what you need to do. Diego, is there any master program for law? Yes, there are LLMs that are available for students. If you go to our website, under our universities, in menu up at the top, there's if you click on the arrow that's beside our university, you will find a section called areas of research. In the areas of research, you will find different areas, and you will find research in law, for example, under social sciences. Um, Diego is asking, is there a Caldo office in Bogota? No, Diego. Our only office is in Ottawa, in Canada. But you can always reach us by email or call us as you prefer. Um, we will probably be in Colombia this year, so keep an eye out for our Facebook and our website because we will advertise all the country visits that we do in our social media. Ana Maria, how much is the cost of the application in a master program? So, Ana Maria, like I said, the application process, the application is around 100 Canadian dollars. So you will need to have access to a credit card to pay for that. So that's probably important to keep in mind. Gabriel, I'm still in the last year of my graduation in Brazil. Do I have to finish my graduation before applying, or can I apply now for a master's degree for next year? So, Gabriel, like I mentioned before, if you are close to finishing, you can start your application and you can submit a preliminary transcript. And once it's done, you will submit the last one. But I will advise you to have all of the other documents ready. So if you obviously because you didn't finish, you don't have the final transcript. So have at least the English test and everything else ready. Elisa Brito, I plan to travel to Canada to visit possible cities and universities in September. You think I should contact potential supervisor before my arrival? Definitely, Elisa. That would be a great idea. If you are planning to come here, write to the professors and tell them when you will be here, and ask for a meeting with them. They are pretty accessible, so they like to meet students, and obviously if they have the room to accept new students. But in most cases, they will make up some time for talk with you. Abigail, once I finish my submission in the pre-assessment platform, how long should I wait until I receive an answer from the supervisors? Should I send my statement of research to the supervisor even though I send it via the pre-assessment platform? What are my chances that once I have a positive reply from a supervisor to be admitted? So Abigail, let's go through stages. So once you finish your creating your profile in the Caldo pre-assessment, you should give it around 2 to 3 weeks to get some feedback. Please note that this depends if the professor is at the university or if he's abroad or if it's just I don't know if it's an holiday season. But usually 2 to 3 weeks should be an acceptable timeline. I always advise the candidates to also send an email directly to the professor with your CV and your statement of research and introduce yourself. Because if the professor happens to reply to your email, things may progress a bit faster. What are the chances of getting admission after the supervisor accepts you? The chances are better than if the professor does not accept you, obviously. However, it's not guaranteed because everything else needs to be in place. So you will need to meet the minimum GPA and you will need to meet the language requirements. But obviously, if you find a professor that is interested in working with you, that's a huge step. Guzman, if I study English in a language school, can I also work part-time to cover tuition? Not in Canada. If you are studying languages here, you are not able to work. Elisa, how relevant is having published international papers in the application process? It definitely helps, especially if you're applying to a PhD. So, but it's not mandatory. It helps, but it's not mandatory. I'm interested in two programs in Alberta and Calgary. It's okay for me to apply to both? Sure, Elisa. You can apply to as many universities as you like. Um, just keep in mind that for each application, you will need to pay the application fee. That's the only thing. Micah, what are the documents or information that I need to prepare if I want to go with my family? I have a child of 3 years old. Would you have to access to childcare or kindergarten? So, Micah, I think, and I'm not 100% sure, but I think that after the 3 years, the child can go to a public daycare. And if that's the case, you will not have to pay. If it's before 3 years, I think it's only private, so you would need to pay for that. What you need to do to go with your family? So first of all, you need to have your letter of admission from the university. You need to ask for your study permit, and at the same time, you need to ask for the permits for your family to come with you. So once again, if you go to the immigration website, that's where you will find all that information. And if you don't find it there, contact the Canadian Embassy or consulate in your country, because they should be able to guide you in the right direction. Okay? Like I said, we don't provide immigration advice at our office, so it's something that we unfortunately do not have the details about this process. I am very happy that I answered all the questions. We did it in a record time of 26 minutes. So I understand that I haven't answered all the questions in great detail because in some cases I don't have the necessary information like immigration aspects or the university scholarships. But please feel free to send me an email. And like I said, my email is graduate.coordinate@caldo.ca, the one that you see here on the screen. And um, we will guide you and assist you the best as possible. Just so that I am so that I before finishing, sorry about this, I will just answer a last question. Um, let me just see what sort of questions I have here so that it can be a question that should be good for anyone. So once again, questions about co-op programs, those are more related to the universities because those are real placements. But if you tell me the program, I can put you in contact with someone from the university. Um, I will answer this question from Taina. Is the webinar recorded? Yes, I forgot to mention this. This webinar is being recorded, and tomorrow everyone will receive the link for the webinar. So you are able to revisit the webinar, and you are able to also have access to other contents that we will put in the email that we will send you. I would like to thank you all for taking the time to be with us today here. Um, I understand that if I didn't answer your question, please send me an email and I will try to answer you directly through the email. And like I said, applying to a PhD or to a master degree is a persistence, and it requires patience. So don't feel frustrated if professors don't reply you right away, or if the information seems too hard to find. We are here exactly to assist you with that and to make your life a bit easier in this regards. And like I said, we will we don't charge any fee, so it's completely free to contact us. Okay. If you are interested in future webinars from Caldo, just subscribe to our Facebook because we advertise all of our webinars on our Facebook. So if you want to get, we do webinars for different topics. So make sure that you follow our Facebook, and definitely you will hear about us very soon because we are planning new webinars in the next month. Thank you so much. Have a great rest of the day and see you one of these days. Thank you.